Hey guys, so I saw the psychiatrist saga, the woman who fell in love with her psychiatrist. I don't have TikTok. TikTok is awful. It's terrible for you. The research shows it is very addictive. It's just not good. But somebody did make a YouTube video where they posted everything, and because I have a background in mental health, I myself have lived experience with depression, anxiety, and I went to school for psychology and psychiatric rehabilitation. I work as a mental health practitioner. I was like, this is very much my wheelhouse, right? So I watched, I don't know, it was like 17, 18 parts. I think it amounted to like 20 or 30 minutes. I cannot tell you if the woman in the video is being sincere. I don't know if she's acting, if this is a ploy at a character, just trying to make some money, because, we've long known that the more negative a video is set up to be, the more people are going to click on it. The more likely people will click on it, right? Once in a while, you'll get some videos where it's like, oh, how to grow your YouTube channel, how to do this. Like some of the self-help stuff will get like millions of views. How to have a net worth like Jeff Bezos, like, that BS type stuff, that cream puff stuff, instead of like really examining who you are as a person, more so like that, almost like that Joel Austin brand of, I know that he's religious, but like he kind of works the same way. Like, if you just give me money, somehow I'll make your life better. That kind of scam. I think you'll see a lot of people do that. But most of the videos, if they have a negative spin on it, they'll click on it. And I'm a part of the problem too. If there's, if there's something where it's like, look at this schmuck. Look at the videos I make, right? A lot of them lean negative. It's tiny and angry for a reason. I'm angry at things that I see or that I encounter, right? It's not tiny and happy. I'm not putting all the things that bring me joy and fill me with happiness. I'm talking about the things that irk me, that are bothersome. It's negative. It's a negative spin, right? It's where it is. There's a lot of problems in today's society. There's a lot of issues. Quality of life is diminishing for a lot of people. And so there's actual negative feelings. There's actual anger or grief. And, we can either face those feelings and they would probably propel us to action. But then we might have to face that there's a lot of things that we can't change, and that's depressing. So what do? We escape through entertainment with negative spins on it, right? So with this lady, I cannot tell you definitively if she's being sincere. I don't know. I have now learned to question everything. How much of this is you being for real? How much of this is you being genuine? I don't trust anybody anymore. There's AI, there's the fact that there's big money attached to going viral, there's brand deals. You really can't trust most things, right? So I don't know. So if she is trying to be entertaining, then that sucks, because that has so many views, and it kind of tells you where entertainment is, right? Where it's like, you don't need to have good sets or makeup or a great script. You just have to show yourself to be incredibly problematic, and to show yourself to not be viewed as a good person, and you can rack up the views. Now, if this is sincere, if this is really who this woman is, if this situation really did happen, in the sense of this is how she interpreted the situation, this is how she views it, maybe it did happen, I don't know. It doesn't appear the way that she's describing it, but that is depressing. It's depressing. It's depressing. It goes to show you how little people understand of mental health. It goes to show you how commonplace it is to have emotional turmoil, that, I think a lot of people with mental illness, they picture schizophrenia. They picture people talking to themselves and, just being on a street corner. And what a lot of people don't understand is that there's people that hold down jobs, they're married, they have families. From the outside looking in, you might not be able to pick up that they have a mental illness, and then you start to dive a little deeper and you're like, oh, I see it. Sometimes you can tell by a person's quality of life if there are certain domains that are like, oh, you're very behind, or this isn't being handled appropriately, or you don't have this. It's like you can usually then go backwards and work like a detective, like Columbo, like Murder, She Wrote, like anybody, any of these, like Sherlock Holmes, and you could be like, oh, this came from this issue, this came from like a dysfunctional family unit, childhood trauma, an event that was traumatic. Just, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a rhyme and a reason to this stuff. And it's really sad if that's the case, because she does seem very troubled. Everything that she describes in the video, it does not appear that the psychiatrist did anything inappropriate. It doesn't appear that he acted with malicious intent. It appears that he tried to shoot her down at every conceivable moment, and she just kept interpreting it as something else. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. And so that makes me not want to speak on it too much, because it's like, she should get help. She should have friends and family members who step in and like take the phone away, or like try to talk to her. Now, it can be very hard when trying to maneuver through a mental illness, because you're like, people should have autonomy and they should have self-determination. They should be able to do things for themselves. But when they're doing something that is affecting their quality of life, affecting their livelihood, there are certain moments where people should kind of step in and be like, okay, but there's going to be repercussions for you down the road, and you're not thinking clearly right now, and maybe we should just take a break. Just take a break from social media. It sucks. It sucks for the mental health practitioner, for the psychiatrist, if this really happened. She uses a lot of mental health terms, but she uses them incorrectly. Transference is when usually a client transfers feelings onto the practitioner, right? So if her story is real, when she says this, self-proclaimed, that she has daddy issues, and so she has a male psychiatrist, so she's transferring the complicated emotions and feelings that should be directed just at her father. She's now transferring them onto her psychiatrist, because he's a male figure, he's in a position to help her. Because he's a doctor, she innately looks at him like an authority figure. It gets complicated, it gets complex, but that's something that should have been addressed with her therapist. She could also address it with a psychiatrist, but the thing is, a psychiatrist really just gives you the meds, and they just head on out. Okay, they're a dusty tumbleweed. They come in, they're like, hey, the med's doing okay, you're sleeping all right, good appetite, because meds can affect your sleep, they can affect your appetite, they can affect your sex drive, so that might come up in conversation. Hey, how's your sex life? I'm not trying to pry. I know that that's personal. I just need to know if the medication is affecting you in a way that's different than before you started. And if it is, then we could talk about it, and we could look at different other types of medications. I'm not a psychiatrist, but like, I know how it goes. Like, it's not, a psychiatrist is not there to hear what you're talking about. That's talk therapy. That's given to you by a counselor, a therapist. a social worker, a licensed social worker. Like that's not where that comes from. So I don't know what she was trying to do with that. But yeah, it sucks. And when you're a mental health practitioner, I will say though, psychiatrists get paid very well compared to everybody else. I will say that. Um, you know, you got that doctor title, especially a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist can prescribe you medication. They are a doctor, okay? Because you can also have a doctorate in psychology. I can get a doctorate in psych rehab. I'll never be able to prescribe people meds. Um, if I get a doctorate in psych rehab, I don't even think I could diagnose. You would have to be a clinical psychologist. You'd have to go to med school. That's what that's for. You know, they're giving you your meds. They're heading on out, bro. They're like, good, catch you later, and they're getting paid well, right? But and I'm not trying to minimize what a psychiatrist would have to deal with, okay? But other mental health practitioners are the pay rate as you go lower on the totem pole, it's very low. It's very low. Like if you're a case manager, you can be a case manager with a bachelor's degree in the mental health field. You can be a case manager with a bachelor's degree and not necessarily in a mental health field, okay? You're not getting paid well. You're, and let's see, in New Jersey, I think the best pay is like what, $48,000 to $55,000 to be a case manager, and they are working you to the bone. It's not easy work. You'll have 20 to 25 clients, sometimes more, usually more, sometimes less. Oh, you'll have a lot of clients during the holiday season, during November and Christmas, because that's when people get depressed. That's the trends for it. Those are big family holidays, and a lot of people with mental illnesses, they're not close to their family. They don't have families. They have isolated themselves. So there's a huge uptick in suicidal thoughts. There's a huge uptick in people going to the emergency room for mental stuff, for panic attacks, anxiety, over drinking, addiction issues because it's how they're coping. There's not a lot of sun. If you're in cold areas, the less amount of sun you receive, the less vitamin D, the more likely you are to be depressed, the more likely you are to have mental health struggles. So think about that. You are being worked to the bone. Holiday season, you're trying to enjoy the holiday season, and you got to have your notes handed in. You have clients that you are constantly checking in because the holidays are rough for them, and you're making $48,000 to $55,000 a year, which is not a lot. For cost of living in New Jersey, it's not a lot. It is a hard field. You are not getting into this field unless you have some real love for people, unless you yourself have had some sort of issue with mental health issues, unless you just have something in you that you want to pay it forward and that you want to help people. Okay, I used to major in chemical engineering, and I'm not built for it. I'm not. I have one of my teachers. He was one of my favorite teachers from high school. He made me laugh because like we had run into each other, and he's like, "What are you doing now, Steph?" And I was like, "Well, I'm in school for chemical engineering." And he laughed in my face, like a huge belly laugh, and I was like, "Why would you do that? Why would you be so mean?" And he's like, "You don't have the personality for it. It's not for you. You'll figure it out. I'm not saying you're not smart enough. It's not for you." And he's right, because I'm a people person. I like to gab and I like to talk to people, and I'm very creative. I'm a strong writer. But I think about the money I would have made in chemical engineering, and like engineers are still respected so much more than anybody that goes to work in the mental health field. maybe psychiatrists because they have their doctorate. They're pretty well respected, but anything below that, man, everybody else in the science field, they just treat you like crap, you know, and it's not fair. It isn't fair. It's like you're doing an incredibly hard job. It affects your mental health. It affects your well-being. It affects you physically. It can be stressful. You have to learn. You're you're dealing with people's traumas and heartaches. You are confronted with the worst of humanity. It sucks because you'll hear stories. You'll read psyche valves. A lot of times you'll have to deal with child protective services, with DIFUS. You'll have to, you'll have to work with parole officers. You'll have to work with cops. In New Jersey, we have parole status. Those are people who committed a crime, but because of their mental health issues, they got a different type of status. It doesn't always mean it's better. A lot of times it could be worse because most crimes, you'll have your sentence. And with a parole status, that can go on indefinitely because it's very vague. It's like, we can't let this person back out until they're stable. How do you define stable? How are you going to check for stable? What does that mean? Each practitioner or the people in the hospital, they could have various definitions of what stable means or how they define that person as being ready. It's tough. It's a tough job. And sometimes you can have clients that are problematic. You can have clients that can become aggressive towards you. You can have clients that will transfer feelings onto you. You can have clients that fall in love with you. You can have clients that accuse you of malpractice. Like wouldn't be malpractice. What's another word for it? Well, accuse you of being inappropriate, filing complaints on you. I'll tell you this: when I did an internship with as a case manager, and we were trying to help a client get a Section 8 voucher. Now, case managers are not working with other agencies like you're supposed to, and if you're a good case manager, you'll start forming connections with people. You'll learn to be social, and you'll learn to just genuinely pick people who like you, and you'll form connections, and then you'll be able to call them, and then when they call you, you can help them out, right? Hand washes hand. It's a human field. You have to, right? But case managers don't have Section 8 vouchers just sitting under their desk, okay? Like maybe some organizations, if they are kind of built that way, but most organizations are just very separate and they don't have that. And so I was trying to help a client get a voucher, and she thought that because, we were an organization that we just had the vouchers, but we didn't, and I had to go through the process. It was a lottery. It was just Section 8 vouchers are very, very difficult to get. They're very, very difficult to get. And they take years and years for most people. And, this was a woman who had the need for it. And I applied for the voucher, didn't get the lottery. And the woman was very upset with me. She was very mad at me. She took it very personally, and I just had to be firm in my boundaries, and I just be empathetic and not take it personally, and just be like, I'm here to help. I would never stop you from receiving a benefit. It just didn't work out that way. And she was taking out her frustrations and anger on me, and it was a phone call, and you deal with it, and then you're like, okay. And then you hang up, and then you go find a supervisor or a coworker who you're close to, and you go and you just vent and ventilate, and then you're just like, okay, now I'll go and deal with it. It's a tough job. It really is. And I do well because I have a sense of humor, and I just crack jokes. I'm just like, whatever, what can you do? But sometimes you'll have a bad day, or you'll be stressed, or you'll have things in your personal life, and then you have to come and deal with other people's problems. It can be really difficult. So I really feel, if this is a genuine story, I feel so terrible for the psychiatrists and the therapists who are getting called out in such a public way. And because of HIPAA laws, they are not allowed to say anything or do anything. They have to be professionals. And it's just such a crappy situation overall. It's very, very difficult. And if we can use this situation to somehow negotiate better pay for all mental health practitioners, that'd be awesome. Because what mental health practitioners have to go through, it is tough. It is not easy. You're helping people who are hurting, and it's that whole thing, hurt people, right? So if she really did this, yeah, there is a chance. I'm not allowed to diagnose people, but you can speculate on people's behavior. There's a chance she has a personality disorder. Personality disorders can be very difficult to deal with because it's very hard for the person to recognize the problem. If we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, if we're talking about borderline personality disorder, those are tough. Those are very, very tough to deal with. It's very, the prognosis, listen, as you get older, it does get better. And like borderline personality disorder, it's not all hope is lost. Dialectic behavior therapy is amazing for BPD. It's amazing. It is the only evidence-backed treatment for borderline that exists, and the outcomes are so good. But getting a person to the point where they're open to starting the treatment, where they're open to doing it, doing their little journals, doing the little prompts, it's hard. It's possible, but it is hard because the person has to accept that they're a part of the problem, and that yes, they were once a victim, but now they're going to shift into being a survivor, and they have to take recovery into their own hands. That is hard for a lot of people because it's the belief that I'm not the problem, everybody else is the problem that has had them survive their situations. So you have to go in, you have to undo that. Then they have to face things about themselves. Then they have to really look at themselves. That's hard. That's hard. That's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's very sad. It's very sad. And mental illness is an explanation, but it's not an excuse. And so I'm not giving her a pass if she is causing all this grief and problems for the people who had tried to help her. Hopefully they just CYA'd, they covered their ass, cover your ass, and they covered their ass very well, and they acted appropriately, and they did the best they could in a very contentious situation. But it sucks. It just sucks overall, and I think my thing, I'm being very vague. I'm trying not to use names. I'm talking about the situation because a lot of people aren't educated about the different levels of mental health care. But I don't want to get too into this because I don't want to monetize myself. I'm not making any money from this channel, so I'm still not there. But I don't want to increase my algorithm because I talked about her, because it's like, well, you're profiting, you're taking a bad situation and you're capitalizing it, right? Now it's topical, it's definitely around, and it does interest me, but there's that part that's like skeevy because it's like, I am a mental health practitioner. If she really is someone that needs help, I'm not doing anything but coming on here and chastising her and attempting a diagnosis when I don't know her at all, just because it's popular and it's what's the algorithm, it's what's going to boost everything, but it does bring up a conversation about things. It brings up a conversation about what we consume. It brings up a conversation about the stigma around certain mental illnesses, the lack of knowledge. Brings up a good conversation about mental health practitioners, what they see, things they might experience, for that sake. But I don't know, it's sad because I think my thing is I saw some YouTube creators that it is not their wheelhouse. They've never talked about topics like this, but because it's so topical, then they're like, well, let me throw my hat in the ring. And I'm just like, how many videos can you make about this lady and not end up saying the same thing? If this is the case, if this really happened, it's sad, she needs help, there's not much more else to say about that, right? If it didn't really happen, we have to examine where we are as a society and where we are with our entertainment. But yeah, it's a weird situation. It'll be nice when you're not hearing any more about that, right? We just keep latching on to things, and especially people struggling. It would be nicer to see more people like united about something and actually affecting change somewhere, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen anytime soon. It looks like escapism and Freud are the name of the game for the time being. But yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on topics that the situation brought up, and let me know anything you've thought of. So I'll talk to you guys later. This one I can see my energy go down because it's messed up, it's weird, it just makes you feel like gross, it's sad, and I think part of it too is because I've struggled. I've had moments with my Instagram or with my social media where it was like, Steph, it wasn't a diary. I could have picked up a pen and a piece of paper and I could have been like, today, and I didn't have to put my business or what I was going through out at the moment. I could have taken a step. I could have gone for a walk. I could have found a waterfall to look at. I could have found a koi pond to just do one of these, but I didn't. I put that stuff on social media and I ended up looking really bad because of it. And because the emotions were just too big, and it was how I coped, and it sucked because you can't take that stuff back. You can change some people's perceptions of you, but then there are other people where it's just like, that's it, that's their perception because you don't have other interactions with them, and that sucks. So I think that's why this whole thing is just like, and being a mental health practitioner myself, it's tough. It's not an easy job, and it's just a reminder that it's not an easy job. Helping people is a hard job because there's so many people that need help but don't know how to accept help because they can't really face what the actual problem is, and all of that is it just sucks for where we are as a society today. But yes, let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.